My dad was my only ally in my family. I got teased and bullied a lot by everybody else but my dad in my family. My dad encouraged me. My dad called me his Margaret Thatcher. Hello people. Is it on? Is it on? This is Suhaida. I know it's been ages. I just went for a run and I decided to make a break to talk about one of my recent reads. I just finished Charles Dickens's Dombey and Son, and it was a tome. And as such, I have been, ruminating white classics. As a black, magnificent woman, why on earth am I reading Dickens? Well, it's because I come from a country that was colonized by the British. So it means that I had a high exposure to British literature and a fascination for the macabre. That's why. Anyway, Dombey and Son. Summary. It's mainly about a father-daughter relationship. A father who is hyper-misogynistic, egotistic, and wealthy, who only wants a son because there is a company that has been handed down from father to son called Dombey and Son. So Mr. Dombey gets his wish fulfilled when the second born, a son, comes into the world, but unfortunately does not stay long. Now, his firstborn daughter, Florence, never got an ounce of affection from him, even though that was all she longed for. And to everyone Florence encountered, including her younger brother, she was nothing short of a saint. Mr. Dombey, however, was surrounded by lick-spittles and sweet-tongued hypocrites who despised him secretly but just wanted, the proximity to his power. Long story short, of course, Mr. Dombey is finally toppled. A toppling that was led hand in hand by his right-hand man and his new wife. And when this happens, he, in his fury, strikes Florence across the chest, leading Florence to run away and go be with people who actually cared for her, people who were not materially resourced in any way. The reason why I wanted to make this vlog was because a couple of weeks ago I was in Berlin with some friends and I was staying with this wonderful woman I had just met whose mutual I went out for lunch with, and we were just speaking of the fast friendship I had forged with this said wonderful woman. And the friend mentioned that she is so powerful and so fragile, and he continued to say that is, the balance to power, fragility. Without the fragility, you are a brute. And so it put me on a thinking path of, even in negating power, in the case of Mr. Dombey, he had such a fragile ego. You couldn't imagine the length to which he went to protect his ego. And because of this, he ended up losing everything, every single thing, right? And he, in the books, was very, very much in hate with his daughter, an undescribable kind of hate. It wasn't a "why are you not a son" hate. It was more of a "why do people love you so" hate. She had that charisma that he realized was as powerful subconsciously. And so I kind of saw the fragility in these two main characters, whereas Dombey had a very fragile ego, very brittle, broke into shards at the barest of breaths. Florence had a very fragile emotional countenance, one that's lent not only emotional intelligence, but also emotional maturity, which meant that she was able to relate to people from all walks of life, thereby being everybody's darling. And she also had a capacity to forgive. And I would say it took a while for her to set boundaries, but then she did. And even then, she worked on herself. And then when she was in a good place, she approached her father again and sought to make amends, meeting him at a very low point in his life. And so in the end of Mr. Dombi's days, he actually had some affection from his daughter, and his daughter also was able to get that loving emotional connection that she had wanted all her life from him. Yes, it was very interesting, and I think just reflecting on my life and my relationships, I feel like I belong to the Florence side of power. Of course I do. I'm not about to be a Dombi now, am I? And I definitely feel that I receive a kind of positive response from many people I encounter. And I also acknowledge that where my heart here is right here. It's very easy to hurt my feelings in your choice of words, in your demeanor, because I am so direct. If I don't like you, you're gonna hear about it. If I like you too much, you're gonna hear about it. As such, when I get hurt. Let's just put it that way. And I also have a tumultuous, currently estranged relationship with my dad. If he looks, we are wearing gray bralettes. Yeah, my dad and I's relationship was the best when I was growing up. It was kind of like the opposite of Florence and Dombi's. My dad was my only ally in my family. I got teased and bullied a lot by everybody else but my dad in my family. My dad encouraged me. My dad called me his Margaret Thatcher. He had all these pet names for me. He never made fun of me. He was just supportive when he was around. But my dad also is sick with bipolar. And so throughout my life, it has been a recurring theme that he'd go on these episodes where he just cannot stand any of us, proceeds to make up scandalous allegations about us. When I was in JHS 2, that was about 12 years, I was writing a fictional novel about a sex worker. Wow, Suhaida. Wow. Yeah, I was kind of writing like a diary of a sex worker situation. And my dad happened on the book on my bed, and he used this as evidence to tell everyone that me, a 12-year-old girl, I am into sex work. Yada yada. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Fast forward a couple of breakups and makeups, he finally got physically violent to where he became a mortal hazard. So I had to, take my space. And that's what happened. Prior to that, I was going to say something. Oh, just going off on the sex work / shame tangent. It's also one of my motivations for starting a good tree. If you've seen any of my videos from God knows when, you would know that I have spoken about being slut shamed by my entire neighborhood at the age of, I think 4 to 6 years. At a very tender age, the entire neighborhood was slut shaming me. And around this time, I also faced slut shaming from my biggest cheerleader. And then when my parents' marriage finally went up in flames, that was when I was about 13 or 14 years old. I was sexually exploited by a couple of my brother's friends. There was one of such relationship that lasted years even. And not only was I sexually exploited, but I was also slut shamed amongst his friend group. So much so that I incurred my brother's ire, and he would, make snide comments about me. My brother and I are also estranged. So yeah, just to recap, Dumby and Son is a very good demonstration of the two pillars of power, where fragility of either the ego or emotion balances this great force with which the world is forged. And yet, without any kind of fragility, I agree with my friend, you become a brute. You just have unchecked power. Nobody can humble you by bruising your ego. Neither can they cause you to transform or mature by bruising your emotions. They cannot spur you on to higher heights by stroking your ego, and they cannot empower you to higher heights by being an emotional support. So yeah, there it is. I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit subscribe. It looks like we are back, guys. Let's see how you guys receive this. If it's good, I promise I'll be back. Bye bye.